Welcome to the Zen Studies Podcast. I'm Domio Burke, a Zen priest and teacher in Portland, Oregon in the U.S. You can practice online with me at brightwayzen.org, and I hope to see you. Thanks, as usual, to new supporting members of the podcast, Joseph from Berlin, Germany, Rodney from Mounds View, Minnesota, Michael from Easton, Pennsylvania, and Kevin from Littleton, Massachusetts. If you are a member of the podcast, thank you for making my work possible. In this episode, I will be reading and reflecting on Chapter 1 of Keizan's Denkoroku, Record of the Transmission of Illumination. In episode 291, I did the same thing with the opening chapter of the book and talked about Keizan and the Denkoroku, so you might want to go back to that episode if you want to know more about that. Once again, I will be reading from a translation of the Denkoroku edited by T. Griffith Folk. I don't include the text in the script of this episode on the Zen Studies podcast website, but there is a PDF version of the text with footnotes available on the Soto Shu website. That is the Japanese Soto school, and there's links to that website and to the PDF of the text on the Zen Studies podcast website page for this episode. As I go through the text in the script on the website, I indicate which page numbers and sections I am referring to. Root case. Shakyamuni holds up a flower. From the Denkoroku, quote, "At an assembly on Vulture Peak, before a gathering of 80,000, the world-honored one held up a flower and blinked his eyes. No one knew his intention, and they were silent. At the time, Mahakashyapa alone cracked a slight smile. The world-honored one said, 'I have the treasury of the true Dharma I, the sublime mind of nirvana, which is the fully clear and signless Dharma gate. I entrust it entirely to great Kashyapa.'" End quote. Mahakashyapa is the Buddha's first and foremost student, his Dharma heir. The Buddha, the world-honored one, is teaching the Dharma to the assembly and holds up this flower and blinks. Only Mahakashyapa gets it and responds with a knowing smile, while the rest of the assembly is clueless. What is it? What is it that he gets? The treasury of the true Dharma I, the sublime mind of nirvana. This sounds like some pretty special stuff. The Dharma is the truth. And to have the Dharma I means to see what I like to call reality with a capital R, instead of being stuck in delusion. The sublime mind of nirvana is a mind completely liberated and at peace. I mean, everyone knows the Buddha had these things, and now he's telling everyone that Mahakashyapa has them too. The story of Mahakashyapa's smile tells us that there is something to understand beyond our usual understanding. There's something important to discover, something essential to awaken to. Whatever it is, it's subtle. So subtle that we may miss it when it's right in front of us. It's also intimate because apparently we can communicate about it with a slight smile at the opportune moment. Pivotal circumstances. Mahakashyapa was a peculiar fellow. Quote, Venerable Mahakashyapa's clan was Brahmana. The Sanskrit Kashyapa is translated here as most venerable swallower of light. When the venerable Mahakashyapa was born, a golden light filled the room, and all the light entered the venerable's mouth, for which reason he was named Swallower of Light. His body was golden-hued, and he was fully equipped with the remaining 31 marks. Only the fleshy lump on the top of the head and the tuft of hair between the eyebrows were lacking. That is all. This Mahakashyapa was a special guy. It's almost enough to make you give up. If the Buddha's first disciple had such enormous spiritual potential from birth, what chance is there for us? A golden light filled the room when he was born, and he absorbed it. He had almost all the makings of a fully awakened being before he put forth any effort into practice. Those traditional marks of a Buddha were apparently physical attributes that a Buddha was born with. So Mahakashyapa was golden-hued and had many other marks, with the exception of 2 marks, which I can't pronounce the traditional words, but it's the fleshy lump on the top of the head and the tuft of hair between the eyebrows. So wouldn't you rather hear about a Dharma ancestor who had to struggle like you do? What do we have to learn from Mahakashyapa? Maybe it's exactly that. He had everything he needed from the beginning. Maybe we do too. I mean, there may not have been any supernatural occurrences at your birth, and you may not have a golden-hued body. But the teachings say nothing is stopping you. To continue then, quote, In front of the stupa of many suns, Mahakashyapa encountered the world-honored one for the first time. When the world-honored one said, Welcome, Bhikshu, his beard and hair instantly fell out, and a kashaya draped itself on his body. Thereupon, Buddha entrusted him with the treasury of the true Dharma eye, and he practiced the 12 austerities, never wasting any time throughout the 12 periods of the day. End quote. So when the Buddha first met Mahakashyapa, he immediately recognized him as a practitioner and welcomed him as a monk or a bhikshu. And his hair instantly fell out, and a monk's robe or kashaya appeared out of nowhere to clothe him. Now, according to the traditional stories, Mahakashyapa was already living the renunciate life of full-time spiritual seeker. So apparently the Buddha simply acknowledged this was the case, and Mahakashyapa continued his practice. The 12 austerities, by the way, included things like eating only 1 meal a day, wearing robes from discarded rags, never lying down to sleep, and dwelling among graves. So it may be tempting to think of a before and after in our practice. There's before we came to Buddhism and after. There's before we took any formal vows as a Buddhist and after. There's before we receive any acknowledgement of our practice from a teacher and after. I mean, what if our practice has been continuous since our birth, like Mahakashyapa's? We may have only a few marks of a Buddha, and we may not practice any of the 12 austerities, but have we always sought the truth in our own way? Have we done our best? Learned from our mistakes? Tried to renounce that which causes suffering for self and other? To continue, quote, seeing only the shabby appearance of Mahakashyapa's worn-out robes, all in the following were suspicious of him. In response to that, whenever Shakyamuni, the honored one, preached the Dharma at assemblies here and there, he shared his seat and had Kashyapa sit next to him. Thereafter, Kashyapa was the senior seat at assemblies. And he was not only the senior seat at Shakyamuni Buddha's following, but the senior seat who never retired in the followings of the Buddhas of the past as well. We know from this that he was an old Buddha. Do not rank him among those who were merely Shravaka disciples of Buddha. End quote. Shravaka disciples being the hearers, those who learn to practice by listening to the teachings. So now we get a bit of a sense of Mahakashyapa as a human being. Apparently he had a shabby appearance and worn-out robes, and all the other monks were suspicious of him. I picture a guy who's obsessed with ascetic practices, dressed in rags, dirty and stinky, used to spending his time in forests and graveyards. Shakyamuni Buddha, in contrast, is generally described as having been attractive to people. They naturally gravitated toward him. So imagine being one of the Buddha's monks or nuns, striving to realize what the Buddha realized, longing to be close to the master teacher, the world-honored one. Then who should the Buddha acknowledge as the foremost student? Who should he invite to sit right next to him? That creepy Mahakashyapa guy who probably thinks he's better than everyone else because he's such a hardcore ascetic. Clearly, fulfillment of the Buddha way doesn't depend on having an appearance or manifestation that is naturally pleasing to people. What matters is the sincerity and diligence of our practice, and whether we've awakened to what all the Dharma ancestors have awakened to. Apparently, in the Buddha's time, few people around were more diligent than Mahakashyapa. But his ascetic way doesn't have to be ours. Other disciples of the Buddha, who are covered in later chapters of the Denkoroku, weren't as hardcore as Mahakashyapa. Shakyamuni taught the middle way and didn't require his monastics to practice the 12 austerities. What is your form of diligence? Working to support your family without complaint? Trying to be patient and fully present for your children? Enduring physical pain and illness with as much equanimity as you can muster? Investigation. What about this held up a flower? to continue. Quote, thus, if one is not an ancestral teacher who transmits the seal of the Buddha mind, one does not know the timing of that held up a flower, and does not understand that held up a flower. Zen worthies, you should meticulously inquire until you arrive at understanding, are able to see in detail, know what is Kashyapa about Kashyapa, understand what is Shakya about Shakya, and individually transmit this profound and completely sublime way. End quote. So we should investigate the timing of held up a flower and investigate the act of holding up a flower. What about the timing? Did Shakyamuni know when Mahakashyapa was ready? According to the footnotes of this translation, different Buddhist and Zen texts disagree on when exactly this pivotal exchange between the Buddha and his disciple took place. It might have been the first time they met, or later on at Vulture Peak, where the Buddha gave sermons to the assembly. This adds a curious twist to the question of timing, making it tricky to grasp. Imagine your own turning moment. The moment when a teacher says or does something, or some other being says or does something, or something random happens, and you get it. When such an event occurs, is it about the trigger? Or is it simply something that comes to the surface that's been brewing all along? Or maybe Mahakashyapa didn't awaken at the moment Shakyamuni held up a flower and blinked, and that was just a sweet moment of mutual confirmation. We inevitably have many dualistic ideas about the mechanics of enlightenment, and Keizan is challenging them. Then there's the holding up of the flower itself. Is this a secret message? We're smart Zen students, so we know the Buddha could have held up a stick or a rock or a begging bowl. There's probably nothing special about a flower. Although a flower is delicate and impermanent. So maybe there is something significant here. In any case, what would the secret message have been? More likely, the holding up of the flower is a test, asking, do you see? Keizan also tells us to know what is Kashyapa about Kashyapa and understand what is Shakya about Shakya. My mind gets twisted into knots with this instruction unless I ask myself, what is Domyo about Domyo? Such a question orients us toward the central koan of Zen. Who are you? If you're a good Zen student, you know you're not your body or emotions or job or house or personality. But Zen doesn't let us stop there. You may indeed be empty of any inherent self-nature. But who would respond to the Buddha if he asked you for your understanding? Who would hold up a flower and blink when a sentient being needed you to? Investigation, blinking and smiling. Quote, setting aside for the moment, held up a flower, each person should come to clarify the place where he blinked his eye. When all of you routinely raise your eyebrows and blink your eyes, there is not a hair's breadth separation between that and Gautama's held up a flower and blinked his eyes. When all of you smile slightly when talking, there is not even a single hair's breadth of difference between that and Mahakashyapa's cracked a slight smile. Nevertheless, if you are not clear about who it is that raises the eyebrows and blinks the eyes, then Shakyamuni and Kashyapa will be in Western lands, and skin, flesh, bones, and marrow will be in your own bodies. End quote. Now we need to set aside all our ideas about practice and enlightenment. It's not that there was some special piece of knowledge possessed by Mahakashyapa and no one else. It's not that Shakyamuni offered up a secret message or tested his disciples' understanding with a signal that pointed at something else. Instead, it sounds like Mahakashyapa and Shakyamuni were recognizing the true nature of their situation. That true nature wasn't hidden from the rest of the assembly in any way. It was just easily overlooked. Keizan says there's absolutely no difference between you routinely blinking your eyes and the Buddha's blinking his eyes in this koan. Absolutely no difference between the half smile you might make without thinking while talking to someone and the response Mahakashyapa gave to the Buddha's flower, which apparently caused Shakyamuni to publicly declare him a Dharma heir. How can this be? Our mindless, everyday, habitual motions are the same as the activities in this koan, which has been passed down and pondered deeply for 1,000 years? Surely the Buddha's holding up a flower and blinking were special. Surely Mahakashyapa's smile was special. We want that special. We've long been searching for that special, that meaning and context and justification lying underneath everything. Where is it? Where is it? If the Buddha were to hold up a flower for us, we would spend the next year pondering what it meant. Keizan describes this situation, saying that if you are not clear about who it is that raises the eyebrows and blinks the eyes, then Shakyamuni and Kashyapa will be in Western lands. The Western lands means ancient India. And when we imagine the true nature of things is hidden from us, we project the Dharma outside of our direct experience. Could it be that the Buddha's holding up a flower was just that and nothing else? Could it be that only Mahakashyapa in all the assembly was able to see that holding up of a flower in all of its raw, unadorned significance? Can you hold up a flower without reference to anything else whatsoever? If you could, the whole universe would be present in the flower, would be holding up the flower, would naturally smile in response. Investigation, becoming conscious of that Lord Master. Quote, if you once become conscious of that Lord Master, then truly Mahakashyapa will be in all of your shoes, able to move your toes. Don't you know that in the place where Gautama raised his eyebrows and blinked his eyes, Gautama is utterly extinguished and done with? And that in the place where Kashyapa cracked a slight smile, Kashyapa comes to have an attainment of awakening. Is this not precisely what is meant by I have? The treasury of the true Dharma I, on the contrary, was entrusted to one's own self, and that was all there was to it. Thus, you should not proclaim that involved Kashyapa, should not proclaim that in involved Shakya. End quote. The footnotes say that Lord Master refers back to the previous paragraph where it says who it is that raises the eyebrows and blinks the eyes. Again, we are pointed toward the matter of our true nature. What would it mean for Mahakashyapa to be in your shoes and wiggle your toes? That's a startlingly intimate image. From a dualistic standpoint, it would be quite a shock if Mahakashyapa were suddenly able to wiggle your toes. But the situation opens up when you investigate. Who usually wiggles your toes? Who wiggles them right now? Do you really know? Apparently, when we truly clarify our true nature, the separation created by space and time and individuality collapses. In the place where Gautama raised his eyebrows and blinked his eyes, Gautama is utterly extinguished and done with. Gautama being the given name of the Buddha when he was born. So we can only guess what Keizan meant by this. But we can investigate through our own direct experience what it might be like for our sense of separateness to fall away in a moment of complete activity. In the place where Kashyapa cracked a slight smile, Kashyapa comes to have an attainment of awakening. Is this not precisely what is meant by I have? How strange to speak about having or attaining anything in this context. Yet Shakyamuni spoke of having the treasury of the true Dharma I and spoke of giving it to Mahakashyapa. What's being referred to if it isn't special knowledge, if it isn't a special attainment that you can hold on to and carry away? What is the nature of awakening? If it wasn't real, that would mean a lot of wasted texts and teachings. We're not allowed to blow off the idea of awakening, but we're also given nothing to grasp. It's something to be explored within as we wiggle our toes. not something to be understood intellectually. The treasury of the true Dharma I, on the contrary, was entrusted to one's own self, and that was all there was to it. Thus you should not proclaim that it involved Kashyapa, and should not proclaim that it involved Shakya. So the word translated as one's own self is Jiko, a term Uchiyama Roshi translates as universal self. Again, we're being reminded not to project the activities in this koan outside of our own direct experience. Again, we're being instructed to clarify the true nature of the self. What does it mean that the Dharma was transmitted 2,500 years ago to our universal self? Maybe anyone awakening to just this, anytime, anywhere, enacts this koan. Investigation. Old guy Shakya is always with you. So this is skipping ahead in the chapter. There is so much here in terms of material and richness, but in the interest of time, this is the last paragraph of the essay. Quote, "It is merely people's vigor or lack of vigor that determines whether the Buddhas appear or disappear. Even in the present day, if one continually pursues the way and thoroughly understands it in detail, then Shakyamuni will immediately appear in the world. It is only because all of you remain unclear about your own self that Shakyamuni long ago entered extinction. You are already children of Buddha. How could it be suitable for you to kill Buddha? That is why you must immediately pursue the way and quickly meet your compassionate Father. As a matter of course, that old guy Shakya walks, stands, sits, and reclines along with all of you, engages in conversation and socializing along with all of you, and is never apart from you at any time. If any of you go through your entire lives without seeing that old guy, then no matter who you are, you will be a person who is utterly unfilial. You are already called children of Buddha. If you are unfilial, then even the hands of 1,000 Buddhas cannot reach you." End quote. There seems to be a contradiction here. On the one hand, if we are vigorous in our practice and thoroughly understand the way, Shakyamuni is still in the world. Cool. But if we're unclear about our own self, Shakyamuni long ago entered extinction. Although we are the Buddha's children, we kill him with our lack of clarity. This makes it sound like the Buddha Dharma depends entirely on our conscious realization, which is depressing. But then Keizan says, that old guy Shakya walks and stands and sits and reclines along with all of us, engages in conversation and socializing along with all of us, and is never apart from us at any time. How sweet to refer to the Buddha in such an affectionate and informal way, old guy Shakya. Whatever Buddha is never apart from us, no matter what we're doing, even if we're just socializing. What does this mean? I like to think that in any moment where we appreciate the holding up of a flower without reference to anything else, Shakyamuni appears. And that whenever we feel Mahakashyapa wiggle our toes, we fully honor the Buddha. that's it for today. I will be back as soon as I can with a new episode. Thanks for listening.